Losing $1 billion made him a billionaire. That market collapse was swift and brutal. His investors vanished overnight, leaving him with nothing but debt. Yet somehow, amidst the chaos, a new plan began to take shape in his mind, a plan that defied all conventional wisdom. He studied human psychology late into the night, searching for an edge. What he discovered was a principle so counterintuitive that it seemed almost impossible. But this principle would become the foundation of his remarkable comeback. The secret wasn't about what he sold, but how people perceived it. The principle was simple yet profound. Scarcity creates value. By limiting availability, he could make his products seem more desirable. This wasn't just marketing. It was a fundamental shift in how he approached business entirely. His brain had been rewired to see opportunities where others saw only failure. With nothing left to lose, he implemented his new strategy immediately. He created artificial scarcity, launched limited-time offers, and watched as customers flocked to what they thought was disappearing. The first sales trickled in, then flowed, then surged. His comeback had begun, fueled by a psychological principle most entrepreneurs never discover. Within weeks, his small business grew exponentially. Former competitors now watched in disbelief as he transformed his situation completely. They couldn't understand how someone who had lost everything could possibly rebuild so quickly. They didn't know about the psychological principle that had become his secret weapon. His empire wasn't just growing. It was revolutionizing the industry. Customers became obsessed with his limited editions, waiting by their computers for the next release. The principle of scarcity had created not just demand, but a cult-like following. His comeback wasn't just a business success. It was a psychological masterpiece. Investors who had abandoned him during his darkest hour now clamored to get back in. They couldn't believe their eyes as his company valuation skyrocketed from zero to nearly $1 billion in just months. The psychological principle that had saved him had now made him one of the most talked-about entrepreneurs in the world. He stood at the helm of his rebuilt empire, a stark contrast to the man who had stood at the edge of ruin just months before. The psychological principle that had rewired his brain for success had become his legacy. Others might talk about business strategies. He had demonstrated the power of understanding human psychology. The story of his meteoric rise became legendary in business circles. How could someone lose everything and rebuild a billion-dollar empire in mere months? The answer wasn't in his products or his market timing. It was in the psychological principle that had transformed his thinking and ultimately, his destiny. Today, his empire continues to thrive, built not just on products but on understanding human nature at its core. The psychological principle that saved him from ruin has become a guiding philosophy for entrepreneurs worldwide. His story proves that sometimes, losing everything can be the beginning of the greatest comeback. From rock bottom to $1 billion empire in just months. The secret wasn't in the products he sold, but in how he understood the minds of those who bought them. A hidden psychological principle had rewired his. Before his billion-dollar empire rose from ashes, our tycoon wandered through the desolate landscape of a completely unrelated field where ambition met harsh reality. His first venture into this unfamiliar territory began with unbridled enthusiasm and a belief that success would come naturally to someone with his raw talent and determination. The initial months were filled with sleepless nights, endless revisions, and conversations with mentors who warned him about the unforgiving nature of this competitive landscape. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to see more amazing content. Fire. Despite pouring every resource he had into this first project, the market responded with indifference as potential customers failed to see the value in his innovative approach. The financial consequences were immediate and brutal as savings disappeared quickly, forcing him to make difficult choices between continuing his dream or finding stable employment. Undeterred by this setback, he regrouped and developed a completely different strategy, believing that a fresh perspective would unlock the secrets to success in this challenging field. The second attempt showed more promise initially as he gained small victories and built a modest following. But these gains proved fleeting when market conditions shifted dramatically. The repeated failures took a heavy toll on his confidence as friends and family questioned his choices, leaving him isolated in his pursuit of a dream that seemed increasingly impossible. On the verge of abandoning his ambitions entirely, a chance encounter in an unexpected location would forever alter the trajectory of his life and career path. The stranger he met that evening possessed knowledge from an entirely different domain. Someone who had mastered principles that seemed completely unrelated to his current struggles. Their conversation lasted for hours as the stranger shared insights that challenged everything. In the business world, alliances between bitter rivals were considered impossible, until he broke all the rules. His greatest nemesis had publicly vowed to destroy everything he built. Yet they sat across from each other in a dimly lit restaurant, discussing terms that would change everything. The tension in the room was palpable. Years of bitter competition had created a wall between them that seemed impossible to breach. Yet here they were, talking about collaboration. What they proposed would send shockwaves through their industry. Competitors who had fought for every market share suddenly faced the prospect of being completely irrelevant overnight. The board members of both companies were skeptical at first. Many threatened to resign rather than work with their sworn enemies. But the vision he painted was too powerful to ignore. Legal teams worked around the clock to draft agreements that would protect both parties while creating unprecedented market dominance. The contracts were hundreds of pages long, filled with clauses that had never been seen before. The announcement came without warning. Industry analysts called it the most audacious business move of the decade. Two companies that had fought each other for years suddenly announced they would merge their operations completely. While the partnership was groundbreaking, it was only half the equation. The real masterstroke was the campaign that would follow, designed to create demand where none existed before. His marketing team presented concepts that seemed completely out of touch with reality. They proposed selling a product that nobody wanted to a market that didn't exist. Yet he saw the genius in their vision. The campaign launched without traditional advertising. Instead, they created a cultural phenomenon that spread organically across social media platforms. People weren't just customers. They became evangelists for a lifestyle they never knew they wanted. The financial markets trembled violently as unprecedented volatility swept across global exchanges. Stock prices plummeted at alarming rates, erasing trillions of dollars in value within days. The economic landscape transformed into a battlefield of fear and uncertainty. Our tycoon watched helplessly as his carefully constructed empire began to crumble before his eyes. The portfolio that had taken years to build evaporated at an unprecedented pace. Each passing hour brought more devastating news. The magnitude of losses threatened to erase everything he had worked so hard to achieve. Billions vanished into thin air as market confidence completely collapsed. His entire financial foundation appeared to be disintegrating. Sleep became a luxury. He could no longer afford as dark thoughts consumed his nights. The psychological toll of watching his life's work disappear took a heavy toll on his mental state. Anxiety and uncertainty became constant companions. His advisors suggested conventional strategies to weather the storm, but something within him refused to accept defeat. The old playbook no longer seemed applicable to this unprecedented crisis. A fundamental shift in thinking became necessary. In a moment of clarity during the darkest hours, he realized that vulnerability might be the unexpected key to survival. The very quality he had always avoided could now become his greatest strength. This paradoxical insight would change everything. He began tentatively sharing his struggles with trusted colleagues, admitting the full extent of his vulnerability. This openness created an unexpected connection with others who faced similar challenges. The walls around him started to crumble in a constructive way, instead of judgment. He discovered unexpected empathy and support from those he had previously kept at arm's length. People were drawn to his authenticity during this crisis. The facade of invincibility had been replaced by something far more powerful. This newfound vulnerability unlocked a radical new business strategy that his competitors would never have conceived. The market crash had created an opening that only someone willing to be transparent could exploit. His thinking had been fundamentally transformed. Hi there. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Tomorrow's video will reveal this secret. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Shushing face.